What up? It's Dramos, and welcome to season 3 of the recap. Yes, I know they've allowed me to be on air for 3 seasons. I can't believe it either. Shout out to the entire LATV family for all of your love and everything that you do. I appreciate y'all. And very exciting as we premiere amidst Black History Month. So, of course, we'll be doing our part here on the show. We'll be spreading some positivity from a historical Black figure, as well as making sure we hear from some of our Afro-Latino and Afro-Latina brothers and sisters throughout the month to share in their experiences. So joining me on the show today to get into all that will be Adalisse Perdomo, who is the host of the New York Dose podcast. So she'll be hopping on in just a little bit to share her experience as an Afro-Latina, a Black woman in the Latin community. Before that, though, man, let's get into some of the BS from this last week. Now, I want to weigh in on the whole Joe Rogan controversy that's happening right now, right? And I understand that, the Rogan stands are probably going to be coming for my neck here, but please, do us all a favor, and take a little break from your life's purpose of, holding on to toxic masculinity and hear me out for a second here, okay? Now, I first and foremost want to say, I don't believe in just throwing away people every time they do something wrong or they make a mistake, right? But what I do believe in, it's not cancel culture, it's accountability, okay? And Joe Rogan, as well as Spotify, need to be held accountable for all they're doing and not doing, right? Like, Joe Rogan has made a career of being a controversial figure, right? And constantly walking that line. But as the story of Icarus goes, when you fly too close to the sun for too long, at some point, you're liable to get burned, right? And I'm hearing from everybody, different opinions when it comes to Joe Rogan, right? And at the end of the day, I'm always here for hearing both sides of an argument, which I know is what Joe kind of stakes his reputation on, right? Always having both sides of an argument present. And I understand that and I appreciate it. But to me, when you begin to invite known liars and hate mongers like Alex Jones onto your show, onto your platform, you're really just trying to stir the pot, whether you want to admit it or not, right? Like, people like Alex Jones, they push out these conspiracy theories with no real shred of truth, and they perpetuate incredibly hurtful lies like the Sandy Hook massacre hoax, that lie that the mass murder that happened to small children in Connecticut was in fact a hoax. People like Alex Jones are out there perpetuating these terrible, disgusting lies. And aside from, dangerous, repercussions that putting ideas like that into the world may present, imagine also being a parent who lost their child in that shooting and being told by people that you're lying. It really is just sick stuff, But as if all of that isn't bad enough, that's not even what got Joe Rogan apologizing. No, what got our buddy Joe backpedaling is this compilation video that has been making its rounds of him saying the N-word, but actually saying it, right? Like hard ER. Not saying the N-word like I'm saying, but saying it, right? And there's also a video of this joke, right? That he told about being in a Black neighborhood and feeling like he was in the movie Planet of the Apes, right? And in both instances, you kind of scratch your head and ask yourself, why does a white man in the United States of America feel so comfortable using that sort of language, right? And it's obvious that Joe thinks because he is who he is, he has free reign to do whatever it is that he wants. It's really just like a level of comfort that no white man should truly have, right? You shouldn't feel so comfortable tearing down and using hurtful language about Black people. You should never be that comfortable, especially as a white man in this country, given its history, right? And Joe Rogan, it seems like he was just once again trying to poke the bear, right? And trying to see how far he can go before someone would say something, right? And the joke, right, that he talked about where he likens, Black people to apes, in his apology that he put out, if you want to call it that, you know, he really half-asses the apology to degrees that I even had to shut it off. He talks about, while he was saying this joke, he was telling a story and just trying to liven up the story by throwing in a joke, right? That he's not, in fact, a racist. And I think what people like Joe Rogan need to realize is that you don't have to be a Klan-loving bigot to participate in racism. Like, it's obvious that Joe grew up in an environment where things like that were okay to say, right? And listen, I understand that part. Like, I genuinely do. I think we all have ignorance at times, right? And even some sort of subconscious bias that is based upon where we grew up and the types of things we learned growing up, right? So I understand that. But what he doesn't seem to be able to understand is that just because that's how you grew up doesn't mean it's okay to continue to perpetuate those types of hateful ideas and just reckless usage of wordage, right? And since he doesn't seem to be able to get to that, connection on his own, it's obvious that somebody needs to step in, right? And I know a bunch of you are going to be yelling out there at the TV, well, it's his First Amendment right to say whatever he wants. Well, actually, the First Amendment protects us against government limits on our freedom of expression, but it doesn't prevent a private employer from setting its own rules. That private employer being Spotify, meaning Spotify can and should do something to rectify this situation. Oh, wait, that's right. They did do something, right? They took down the episodes he had of him saying the N-word, and they've pledged a very gracious pledge, right? They've committed to spending $100 million to audio content from historically marginalized groups. Very gracious, Spotify. You paid this guy $100 million to spew hate and racism, and then on top of that, you're going to say you're pledging $100 million to these communities and audio content and act as if you're probably not going to be profiting from it anyway and getting your money back and maybe then some. Doesn't sound like you're really interested in doing much. I mean, so basically, a corporation is just doing what corporations do best. Throw money at something and pretend like it solves all the problems. And what is the problem, you might ask, right? Well, people like Joe Rogan on giant platforms like Spotify have an incredible amount of influence and reach, right? And them being given free reign to spew hate themselves or have guests spew hate is incredibly dangerous. Like, look at all the QAnon lunatics or the January 6th insurrectionists who followed a bunch of liars and incited violence in this country. Much like, drunk driving laws, sometimes people need to be protected from themselves, and that's what we're talking about here. And although we live in a country that doesn't seem to like doing this, particularly for powerful white men, people like Joe Rogan and companies like Spotify need to be held accountable when they inevitably cross that line. Now, with that said, let's get into Black History Month and bring on my guest to let us know all about her experience. I'm incredibly excited for this. Her name is Adalisse Perdomo, and she is the host of the New York Dose podcast. Adalisse, how you feeling?
Hello. Thank you for having me, Dramos. I'm feeling great, feeling good.
Of
feeling
course.
Very honored to be on your show.
Of course. I'm excited to have you on. I mean, I want to definitely get into your podcast and all that stuff that you're working on. But, we are in the midst of Black History Month, and I want to make sure that, we come correct and represent on this show. So I wanted to talk to you about it because I know that via social media, you've been very outspoken, embracing, the fact you are in fact a Black woman, a Black Latin woman, right? And being
Afro-Latina all day, every day.
Exactly. So I want to get into that because I feel like, unfortunately, often in our community, historically at least, there's been a lot of colorism. There's been a lot of internalized racism. So I mean, I think for starters, for you, I guess kind of growing up and then fast forwarding to where you are now. I mean, when you think about Black History Month and you thought about it growing up, like, did it feel like something you were a part of? Did it not kind of make perfect sense to you? I mean, kind of talk a little bit about growing up, in your own skin a bit.
Yes. Well, yeah, growing up, Black History Month, I did not feel a part of it, especially in school, because they only teach us certain things.
Right.
I felt connected with certain struggles, but I didn't feel like I was fully like immersed in that. But growing up, yo soy dominicana. I very proud to be Dominican. I was born here, but my whole family is Dominican.
Right.
Go there every summer from the time I was 2 years old to 14 straight every summer.
Right.
So I really was able to connect culturally there. But I feel like growing up, I didn't feel like in my household, most of everyone in my household we were around the same color skin.
Sure.
So I never felt like any weird like comments towards me. Like in my household, when we talk about going to other family events, maybe. But in my household, my mom always made us, feel proud of where we're from. And yeah, so I feel like growing up, I didn't feel connected to Black history, but I wasn't like so oblivious, if that makes any sense. Like, I wasn't like disconnected from what was happening, what was going on. Because my family was able to like teach me culture, and take me to where I'm from and show me like all the sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting, and I'd love to kind of hear this, because the term, Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina, that's become a bit more of a buzzword as of late, right? I feel like more of our generation are the ones kind of, finding the right verbiage and using that. But like, was that something your parents were keen to using? Like, like, are they aware of that term?
No. And to be honest, I just started like using that maybe like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit further. But growing up, I always said, "Oh, I'm Dominican."
Right.
So that wasn't something that they definitely didn't use.
Right. I think it's funny that I think that, I mean, I can't speak for them, but I assume, I feel like, it's a lot of a buried history, right? When you talk about the African roots and Latin culture, and it's almost like you see that people, let's just say historically, somebody like Roberto Clemente, you know what I mean? Like, is very obviously an Afro-Latino, but like, we never mention his African side. We've never mentioned maybe the roots that he came from. It's almost like this thing where it's like we see it, but let's pretend like it's not a real thing, kind of.
Right. Or they use other words like I got a lot of morenita.
Right.
I got a lot of growing up like, oh, ella linda pura morenita, like you're cute for a darker skinned girl, especially like Dominican culture. I'm speaking from that perspective.
Sure.
Or negra. Negra is an endearing word, but it's still calling out your blackness,
Right. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I think when you say something like that, like, it's like, oh, you're cute for a dark skinned girl, like. I mean, growing up, like, how do you kind of internalize that a bit? Like, how do you make sense of your identity as that? It's almost like it's a backhanded compliment,
Yeah, it's a weird it was definitely a weird feeling. Because growing up, when I was younger, my hair, as you guys can see, curly out there, right? Always embraced it. Always like, I would go to the Dominican salons. They would always try to like put a softener. They're like, oh, like a little, and I'm like, no. I was very confident in like my hair. Like, granted, my sisters did get relaxed. Their hair was more thicker than mine, and back in the day, like that was the thing to do.
Right.
Because my curls were looser, it was still better than the thicker, supposedly better than the thicker. So it was still like on that fine line of like, oh, it's a little crazy, but it's looser than the kinkier. I feel like growing up, my hair was always curly, always out there. But I feel like when I got to college, that's when I started like, I wouldn't say, well, that's when I started like internalizing certain things, or like I started feeling some type of way, because a lot of my friends, they're white Latinx, or lighter than me, hair's straighter, looser curls. So when we would go to like these parties, especially like these typical parties, which is Dominican, you know, straight with the band, the tamboras, like band merengue. That's when I start to notice when guys will start approaching. They would approach my friends, but they wouldn't approach me, like to go out to dance.
Sure, yeah.
You know, that was like the thing, like, you know, you dance on it.
Right.
And I think that's when I started noticing it. I was like, wait, hold up.
Yeah.
You know, because I just felt like, you know, I know how to dance. You know, I don't feel like I'm that bad looking.
Right.
But I knew it was the hair, because my hair will always be out, you know, and all my other friends, their hairs would be pinned straight.
Right.
So that's when I started realizing, okay, it's still there, you know, or like those things, you know, those little comments that I would hear growing up. Because, you know, when I was younger, like I said, I was very proud, still very proud, but very just like, you know, nothing was really pointed out to me, like, you know, this and this and that. But as I started getting older, I started realizing like those little things. I was like, okay. And it will be, unfortunately, from my own community, from my own like peoples. And I started feeling some type of way. In college, I did straighten my hair. Half of the reason maybe was because of that. Right. A little bit. And I also started to think that I was feeling like more put together or more pretty because my hair was straight. And the other half is I went to school in Buffalo and it was cold over there. And having your hair curly out there all the time, you know, is a recipe to get sick. But But yeah, but I was able to catch that real quick within myself, because I was like, no, like, this is my hair. I love my hair. I get compliments all the time. I feel like it's a staple. They say you are not your hair, but I beg to differ a little bit, because, you know, it grows out of you. Like, I feel like it tells your story. Sure. And there's just so much in there. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, but I think you're hitting on something, because you're talking about something that on the surface might seem like, oh, what's the big deal? It's hair. But when you're talking about women of color, you know, like these were things that were used against them to be viewed as lesser than, right? And like in the workplace, it's unprofessional to have, you know, hair that's not straightened and all that kind of stuff, right? And really, these were all just like subtle racist things that were developed in society, you know what I mean, to create this caste system. And then, you know, for many Latinos, and in my own way, I've done that as well, you know, for my own version of what that means, you know, to be presentable and things like that. But, you know, we've all kind of adapted this insecurity and feeling like we have to change who we are to fit in and assimilate and be taken seriously, you know? So, I mean, I think what you're talking about, like, you know, 4 years ago, learning to use the word Latinx and embracing that kind of thing. I mean, what was kind of the turning point for you that you felt like you started really, you know, making that kind of thing a priority for you to get in touch with that side of yourself a bit more?
I wouldn't say there was a turning point. I think just getting to know my family more, maybe like just asking those questions and like knowing like their past, and also like challenging them. Like, cause you know, like, I'm having these conversations like with my friends, you know, like I have friends who are schooling me too, you know, like that's how I was able to learn. Like, that's why I feel like there's not like one point, because I feel like it was a gradual like learning from all around and within myself. But like, you know, challenging my grandma when she used to say like, I'm going to bring, this sounds bad, but because you know, she used to smoke cigarettes. So when I used to go over sometimes, like, you know, playful, she'll just be like, oh, the wick, like she'll like have the lighter. She'll be like, oh, I'm going to burn you. But she'll say this fine, like the wick come out. And I'm like, it's a pajon. Like a pajon is like, it's a afro, but it's more like a messy, like messy pajon, like big. And I'm like, no. So I feel like challenging her and having those conversations with her, like saying like, you know, when you used to do that, like that kind of used to like make me feel some type of way, and like knowing like this is who I am, and this is like, you know, like your granddaughter came out this way, but your other granddaughter came out another way, you know, with a different texture of hair. So I think having those conversations, and of course, like having my friends school me, as well, was like a turning point, and knowing like, no, I have Afro roots in me. Like I know it, like, and I'm also a dancer as well. Sure. So when I hear those drums, like I know it's not like for no reason. Like that feeling that I get, like, is a real spiritual. Like I'm also like a house head. I love salsa. I love like the way my body moves, that the rhythm, the way that I feel. Like I know, like it just felt like it was like the cherry on top. Like I always knew, but like knowing that, like, no, I am an Afro-Latina. Like,
right. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I think we're seeing it a bit more, right? We're seeing people begin to embrace the more natural side of themselves and really embracing their culture and understanding that, like, you don't have to ditch that in order to find success or acceptance in this world, you know? But I mean, is there anything that you kind of see, be it in media, you know, whatever it might be, that you're just kind of like, man, we still got like a lot of work to do in this space?
Yes, as we know, there's so many levels to this, and this is so complex, and I'm still learning. Sure. But I feel like just touching base when you said like everyone embracing their natural, I still feel that people are still doing it for the gram, you know, or for the clout. Like it's more because it's in style now, you know.
Right.
So I feel like as soon as we go, like it goes back to like being straight, I feel like they'll switch right over. So I feel like there's still a bunch of work that needs to be done. It happens in your household, especially like I'm very big on like the children, because you know they're the next generation, they're the future. So you have children, like start now, you know, letting them know. There's still so much schooling that needs to be done, and verbiage is a key part. I feel like it's a big one. And until we stop like running away from ourselves and really doing that internalized work.
Right.
I feel like as a whole Black, Latino, like that we're able to advance to that next level. I still feel like there's a lot of people still in denial, or there's a lot of people that want to be Black because they feel like it's cool now. And it's like, but you're not Black, you know, you're, you know, there's some that are claiming being Afro-Latino and, you know, they look like you. And you know, I mean, I consider you a white Latino.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's so much work that needs to be done, but I am happy and proud of like the conversations that are happening, and like the buzz, whether it's mainstream. I'm glad it's mainstream because it's still causing that conversation and it's still bringing that awareness. But I think that internalized work, like knowing your history, having those conversations with your family members, that is what's going to advance, so you can really know. You know.
Absolutely. Is there anything specific that you've seen, let's say on the good side of things, that you've been like, damn, that's really dope, or that's really inspiring, whether it be a person, a platform, whatever it is that you feel like you're able to see yourself in?
Ooh, I feel like now, thank God, there's enough. But I mean, I have one friend, I love her, named Julissa Contreras. She's from this podcast called Ladies Who Bronche, and she's always just, you should get her on here too.
I think I did a panel with her actually. Like a month or two ago. Yeah, I think we were on a panel together.
That I get so much information from, and she always just so articulate and so just like the information that she puts out. Like that's one. I mean, I love Mara Negra. Like she was able to like bring that, you know, through mainstream. You know, Zoe Saldana was one of my first, when it comes to like on screen, right?
Sure.
Like seeing, like knowing that she was Dominican, and of course that she was a dancer. That was like two things. I was like, oh my gosh, like she dances and she's Dominican, like, you know, like, so that was like one person that I could think of for sure that really like was like, okay, I can see myself like on, you know, on there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of sometimes all you need is to see that one person that inspires you then to be able to go on your journey, you know? I mean, and let's talk about your journey a bit, then let's talk about the New York Dose podcast. I mean, tell me about it. Anybody that hasn't tapped in, I mean, what was kind of, you know, the deal with the podcast? What's it all about?
Yes, so me and my co-host / bestie / partner in crime, DJ SJ614, Derek Sherrill, we started the New York Dose 4 years ago. We were actually called the Bodega Podcast before, but then we rebranded, and then the New York Dose was born. Listen to the one of the episodes to see that story, because it was a crazy story, that rebrand. But we rebranded, and we were just like, we're both Afro-Latinx. He's Costa Rican, Black, Dominican. We started off like giving entrepreneurs, artists of New York that platform. We were very interested in that overnight success story of like, or on the grind, here in the concrete jungle. So after we were interviewing a bunch of artists, a bunch of entrepreneurs, which we still do. But each season we were able to change our theme. So this season 5, we're on season 5. This season is a season of how-to. So we like creating like a guide, a spiritual guide. It's very therapeutic. We like to say it's like Super Soul Sundays and Brilliant Idiots mixed in together. Our last one was like how to power through, how to handle rejection. So we go through that, and then we give our like, the New York slang, the dose of New York, like our true selves. And then so we've been doing that, and it's been great. We are also multimedia. We are helping other people start their own podcast. Dope. And just helping them with any other media needs as well. And we just made top 4 on the 20 Black podcasts to listen to on Blavity. So that was dope. That was so dope. We were like, wait, hold up, number 4? Right. So shout out to Blavity for that. That's dope. So yeah, we just been grinding it out. And just trying to give you guys all what you need. And like having, like, we're all learning through this too. So it's like, it's a very open, we're very raw. We barely edit, what you hear is what you get. Right. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And we just look forward to keep on building and connecting with other people.
I love that idea. That's actually really original. About each season is like a different kind of focus.
Yes, it's a different theme. Yeah,
that's dope. I really love that idea. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, at first I was a little skeptical. I want to give my co-host his props, because I was just like, when you're starting off a brand, you want to have a consistent.
Sure.
But I think it's definitely helped us grow as hosts, help us grow as individuals, because we're switching it up, and then gaining new audience too, new minds. So
no, absolutely, and I think it helps keep it fresh for not only you but the audience as well. I do a podcast, and like sometimes you start running out of things or revisiting the same ideas, right? So like you have to figure out ways to keep it interesting for both you and the audience. And that's a really dope and creative way to do so.
Yes, thank you.
I'm assuming obviously they can find the podcast anywhere you find podcasts.
Yes, anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, we there.
Dope. And where can people follow you if they want to tap into all that you're doing?
Yes, you can follow me at Adalisse Perdomo and at the New York Dose. I'm 24/7 on both. So
I love it. Well, listen, at least I appreciate you hopping on to the show. I've enjoyed getting to talk to you and get your perspective on all this stuff. And definitely stay in contact. Hopefully we can collaborate on some more stuff.
Yes, you got to come on the New York Dose.
Yo, let me know. I'm there. Let me know. Send me the invite.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too. Man, big shout out to my guest this week, Adalisse Perdomo, for hopping on and just giving us her incredible experience for Black History Month. Make sure you check out her podcast, The New York Dose. And man, we're about to get on up out of here. But before that, of course, I want to leave you on some positivity in the form of a positive quote. Now, today's quote comes to us from the late, great Malcolm X, and that quote is, "A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything." And I just think that that's an incredibly true verbiage of words that speaks to the time period that we're in right now. You have so many people who want nothing more than to sit back and get some amnesia and pretend like the past didn't happen and there's no changes to be made. But the rest of us who are keen to what's actually happening and what has happened and what needs to change, we need to stand up, right? We can't allow ourselves to have the veil pulled over our eyes or to hide under the covers anymore. It's obvious that we live in a world we can't trust people to do the right thing. I mean, look at this whole Spotify, Joe Rogan situation. They have so many people fooled that it's this man's right to say whatever the hell he wants to say and not have any sort of repercussions. And the reality is every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Everything that we do in this world will have a reaction to it, good or bad. And Joe Rogan, Spotify, and anybody else out there who is choosing to fight for cancel culture and to advocate for, not having cancel culture and by doing so ignore fighting for racism needs to really have a reckoning for what they find important in this life. If you're choosing to fight against cancel culture instead of racism, you really had a lot of self-reflection that needs to be done. When people do something wrong, when they cross a line, they need to be held accountable. Again, I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe we should be throwing Joe Rogan away. But he made a mistake. And since he doesn't seem capable of really understanding what it is that he did wrong and atoning for it, somebody needs to step in. And since Spotify doesn't seem like they're all that interested in stepping in because they love the money too much, it's up to us to use our voices, to use our platforms, to make them incredibly uncomfortable until they decide to make the situation right. And that's the way it goes for anything in this world, right? You see something wrong, you see an atrocity, it's up to you and the rest of us to band together and stand up against it until it is corrected. Now, with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning into the premiere of season 3. I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for the incredible support the last 3 seasons. Man, I'll catch y'all next week and we will do it all over again. So then, stay safe and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.